Okay, but I can't implant something that mimics human tissue because it's kind of like picking up a wet noodle and trying to, push a wet noodle through a straw. Okay, it doesn't work too well. So we came up with a series of protocols that we could actually irradiate the polymers and cure them in a very specific way that didn't involve a whole bunch of nasty chemicals. And we could give it the characteristics of like an ABS plastic when it's cold. So if it's at like 70 degrees Fahrenheit or below, it would have the characteristics of ABS. You could sharpen it, you could put a razor's edge on it. You could sit there and you'd flick it and it'd be very rigid. You put it in between your hands, you warm it up to body temperature, and it becomes so very pliable that you could roll it up into a ball. And you could bounce it on the table. And so we were actually tuning the softness and the elasticity of the plastics for body temperature to mimic muscle tissue and fat and tendon and all these other characteristics. And then what we would do is that we were working on a combination of electrodes and surface additives that would promote growth of new tissue onto it. Because what you want to do is it's great to have a material, but you want to have like axion tendrils from the nerve endings. You wanted it to grow down onto it and be able to inject electrical signals or promote its growth. Because what happens is if it's too dissimilar to human tissue, the human tissue encapsulates it. It views it as a foreign body. So it's kind of like when you get a splinter in your hand and it gets that little like hard rock and it festers up and gets all nasty. Well, that's your body's natural response to it's a firm, hard thing that's in your body. Well, by changing the thermoset characteristic properties, we made something that was capable to be inserted by a surgeon with very high degree of accuracy and rigidity. But then as soon as it warms up, it gains the characteristics of whatever human tissue we were shooting for. So we had some that were more muscle-like, some that were more tendon-like. So we can actually tune those, and the interest for something like this would be a scaffold, is what they call it. So if you want to build a kidney, that's great. You start off with some cells and you start growing them, but you have to have something to build them on. It's known as a substrate, or in the biological world, they call it a template. So if I wanted to grow a tendon in a very specific way, we can actually make the polymers with very specific thermal characteristics so that they become pliable, and you can grow it, and then actually during growth you can warm it back up again and cause it to flex and move. But during manufacture, you want it to be very, very precise for placement and automation, robotic manipulation. Well, you don't want, again, a wet noodle. So you cool it off a little bit within the range that the tissue can survive, but it becomes rigid again. You do your manipulation to it, you put it back, you warm it back up again, and it goes back to being pliable. And we were seeing 10, 15 times more tissue acceptance as opposed to tissue rejection. And like we were actually making neuroprobes, so we were using the microscopes to actually go in and write little nano traces and manipulating cell nerve endings and stuff. So we would allow the nerve bundles and stuff to grow back onto these, and you could actually induce muscle movement and other things with these pliable implantable circuits.
All of this at American Performance Polymers in Colebrook, New Hampshire, with Bino LaMontagne.